Hola, hola.
Oh, we,
Uh-oh. Hello.
hello.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Felina.
Hello, hello. Nice to meet you, Latasha Barnes Griffin.
Nice to meet you. Thank you again for joining us today on our little podcast episode.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. We're already recording, so we'll go ahead and get started. Watasha Barnes Griffin, CEO and President of the YWCA of Central Indiana. Thank you again for joining us today on Unhoused and Unheard.
I wish we could acknowledge with our listeners every single accomplishment that you have made over your years of service with nonprofit organizations, but that would take up the entirety of the episode. So first, we'd like to know more about what kind of sparked your drive into the field of social justice.
Um, just my lived experience. So just being a person from this community and the way that I was raised with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and then my mom. They were very active in community ever since I can remember. And so really come from a strong line of matriarchal women. So my grandmother had six kids and she was divorced and ended up raising them on her own. But community was a part of that network for her, that support network. And so, yeah, from a young girl, I can just remember being at soup kitchens, passing out flyers in community, food pantries, like NAACP meetings, all the things, right? And so it's just been a natural part of my life that would not, I can't think of not doing those things in community. But then I was getting older and I was able to put like voice to it and career to it. It was clearly, I was like, oh, this is like social work or right, like human services, social work. And so then I was able to name that. I knew that I would always help people, but I didn't have a name as a young girl. And then I started to be around the people that were in my life who were speaking into it by all of these things that I've just mentioned and other great pioneers from our community who I shared space with growing up. It just became a part of my DNA. And the community of Muncie, where I grew up and where I was born, you live in a community, you serve the community. And so this community has given a lot to me. And so I find ways to give that back. And especially when the community looks like me, and then there are under-resourced folks. I want to really lean in and do all I can as a leader in this community to amplify the voices of those like who need it the most. And so yeah, so it's amazing when a profession and a passion can kind of align. Yeah. So I get to do the thing I love every day for work. So
Yeah. Um, Talk to me about what trends you're currently noticing as someone who works for a nonprofit post COVID-19.
lots of since COVID-19, we've seen an increase in people's need for social services, whether that's food insecurity is really, exacerbated, right? Adequate and affordable housing. You see that, like the job market still is trying to recover from COVID. And so folks that were already kind of under resourced or like at or below the poverty line, like they are still trying to catch up as well as we are, but there's just even more for them a struggle. That also ties really like to funding and other financial resources that government, city, county, all of those things that impact individuals. But folks, healthcare, affordable housing, quality of life in place, um, even educational gaps, still trying to recover from all of that lack of school time for folks. And then in the direct work that we're doing, like here, very much it is serving and unhoused women and kids who live with us. And so being able to, they stay with us longer time, they stay with us for longer space of time than our program typically allows for. But in the wake of COVID, we know that it takes people a little bit more time to get to stability because of the after effects of COVID, if that makes sense.
What resources are still needed for you and the community as a whole to complete your work effectively and efficiently?
Funding. So a nonprofit organization and lots of organizations in our communities and communities beyond us. I mean, social services, grassroots organizations, it's really relying on donors, like individual gifts from donors. You're looking for, fundraising all the time, grant writing. So there's never enough money, right, for nonprofits and for this work and others' work. And then some of the roles the government plays, like that also is kind of a barrier to success and the need. So yeah, always money. Um, Always looking for and advocating for like minimum wage in Muncie, Indiana. Indiana is like $7.25 an hour. Like who can live off of that? So we have lots of families in our community, which are called Alice families. And so that means asset limited, income constrained, and employed. They work, they have jobs, but they have rent, they have kids, they have transportation costs. And so there are people who are going to work every day and who are still on the cusp of like being in poverty because like our minimums and our pay isn't that great. So pay equity is important to me. Um, Equity in the workplace, period, right? Definitely a feminist here, love my family and my husband and all those things, but definitely really looking at women being the life givers and the caregivers and what they need to have a quality life is money, right? Because money will give them stable housing, quality housing, right? Medical issues can be taken care of. They can pay for their prescriptions. So many times in our work, we have women who come to us to our emergency shelter program who have an income, but it's like, I needed all of my medications and I needed these health exams, and that took my money. Like I should have prioritized paying the rent first versus, but I needed my car to get to work so I can, right? So I needed to pay the insurance. I needed to have the gas. And so there's lots of things that um, they have to decide um, based on what our communities and our government has put in place. So I hope y'all getting stuff out of this. I hope y'all chop it and screw it and do what you do with it.
The YWCA of Central Indiana, it focuses on eliminating racism, etc. Historically, the YWCA of Central Indiana is a woman and family shelter with wraparound services. What are the most common concerns or needs for the women who come to stay at the YWCA of Central Indiana?
So YWCA, we have an emergency shelter program that's part of our programming. And so our mission, is to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, dignity, and freedom for all. And so we do that through three key lenses. One is through social justice and civil rights advocacy, financial literacy and empowerment for women and girls, and then health and safety for women and girls. And so under that health and safety lens, we have our emergency shelter program that has the capacity to serve up to 80 women and whatever children they have in a 6-county radius. And so their stay is complimentary. So they come in for an initial 45 days, which is 6 weeks. And what we do is we provide them a place to lay their head so they don't have to worry about that. So then they can focus on the things that will get them back on their feet and stable. But the thing that they need once they're here is quality housing when they're ready to go. And there's not very much. What they can afford is really not great quality. And then public housing lists and things that they could qualify for, those lists are yay long. Or Section 8, those lists, so there's the barrier to what long-term housing looks like once they leave us, which is why a typical 45-day program for not just us, but many sheltering programs, they realize that in the wake of our economy now, 45 days, 6 weeks isn't enough for a woman to change the complete trajectory of her life. It never was, but it was just a launching pad. And so now we see women who have to stay with us, 60, 90 or longer days because they're working to get to that next spot, but they have to save money at their job so that they can pay the first month's rent and damage deposit for something that's really quality. So it's quality housing and affordable wages. Those two are the barriers for women being sustainable and stable on their own in community.
Um,
Yep.
how
Childcare too, like, you got to have childcare. So that's influx. Food stamps are influx, Section 8, all those things are influx. And so those are all of the things that will impact women and kids that we're working with.
how does the YWCA of Central Indiana kind of ensure the safety and confidentiality of its clients?
Everything is confidential. We're bound by HIPAA. So as individuals come into our program and they live with us, family members or friends may know that they are here, but we are never able to confirm or deny that they are here. Like, no one can call and say, I'm the governor of Indiana. Okay, well, sorry, we can't confirm or deny, you know what I mean? And so then we also, when people present at our doors, if they're looking for individuals or saying things, we never confirm anything. The only time we would really break that kind of a confidentiality is if, like, there was an active warrant, right? Like there was a warrant from, law enforcement, and it has an individual's name and they really are with us, then we would have to disclose. We would just say, we'll go get that person for you because we don't want to be breaking the law. If there are people with us living in our systems, they kind of check routinely for warrants or anything in the legal system with the clients that we serve. If they notice something is flagged or that, a woman might have an active warrant at this point, then case managers or directors of operations, they're going to those individuals and talking to them about, like, hey, we need you to go and handle this, because otherwise, like, we're harboring a fugitive and that's illegal. But HIPAA violates. So there are different layers in our organization. We have maintenance folks, we have case managers, we have HR, we have front desk workers. The only ones that really know the intricate details of an individual's care plan or case plan is that case manager and the program coordinator. So while we have this huge organization, there's a small amount of folks who have access to private information. In fact, we use what is called a homeless management information system. So it's HMIS. So it's a trained database that we use that connects to HUD in the state that you have to have special credentials to get into, right? And then all of their files, their physical files, are really locked up in a space. And so, yeah, we never tell anyone who calls or anyone who appears at the door, or even me in my community, hey, is such and such and such at your shelter? I'm not able to confirm or deny. Because our folks can go and live about life as normal. They just sleep here. So they have jobs, they go to the grocery, they do all the things, because this is a emergency shelter program to help uplift them. So there are no rigid rules. So they have curfew, right? They have to be in before we lock our doors, but they can go work, play, live, and do all the things that they do out in community. And so if I'm at the store, grocery store, and I see a person who may be a client of YW shelter program, I don't speak to them unless they speak. So there are social work code of ethics that we have to follow, and those in those spaces do that just well. And there's zero tolerance for me. Like, that's not, or director of operations and on down, there's zero tolerance with any of that. Yeah.
What is the biggest need that the YWCA of Central Indiana is not currently able to meet for its clients?
I wish I could give them all housing. I wish, so for us, we're looking at, like, what does having a footprint throughout community look like? So we have emergency shelter. We also have what we call second stage housing. So we have a program where women can stay with us for up to a year in a longer term program, because there is a barrier to, like, she's waiting for her Habitat house, her name to be called, or she just has this eviction and we're trying to work with legal to get it off. So, but yeah, it's really housing. And I wish I could hire, have so we look at emergency shelter. We would love to have scattered sites where we have transitional houses or own some apartments or even homes where they can go into those spaces. So that's the work and vision for us moving forward, is to be resourceful internally and be able to provide some of those things that the public hasn't and can't, and that the woman herself cannot. Everything that they receive here is in that first 6 weeks is complimentary, everything from everything. So all hygiene, all clothing if they need that. Laundering services is all theirs. You know, we have a food pantry. We give food. We give hot meals Monday through Friday, sack lunches, like all the things, everything that they need, bedding, all of the things they need, we provided for them in that 6 weeks time. And so those things come to us by fundraising, lots of grant writing, lots of our local foundations, philanthropic needs, reaching out to community for different types of drives. Hey, we're in need of new pillows, or we're running low on deodorant, like all of those things. And so everything that you and I would use, we also need that here. One of the ways that we can kind of supplement some of that is because we have our own resale shop that is attached to our building, and it's open just on Fridays and Saturdays, couple hours a week, but all the money, people donate things to us. And if our residents can't use those things in real time, we put them in our own resale shop and we sell them from 25 cents to $3, but every single dollar comes right back to the organization so that women can stay here complimentary. So yeah, there is no fee. There becomes a fee when they go into like second stage housing with us, because at that point they have an income, they have their retirement or a social security or some kind of a financial dollars, or trustees, our local trustees will also pay. And so they will pay a small fee to live with us up to that year. But it's such a nominal fee. You get Wi-Fi, safety, security, privatized rooms, computer lab, TVs, and all these things in our entire program. But when you are in our second stage, you have a little bit more freedoms, and they stay because our program fee is still cheaper than a rent of a 1-bedroom apartment. So they find value in here. And then it's 24-hour surveillance, and it's on, there's cameras that our staff can always look and see what's happening in the building and outside, except for like bathrooms and bedrooms, but it's still a safe space. And we're here 24 hours a day, so there's a benefit for that. But yeah, housing, I provide them all a brand new apartment or house, whatever they want, I'd give it to them.
Would you be able to kind of talk us through the differences in resources that are offered to a single unhoused woman versus a woman with children?
So for us, we felt we really prioritize case management and goal setting and planning. So every single woman, whether they are mom or not, they all have some very specific goals that they have to work on. Housing is one. I mean, you are unhoused and you had nowhere to go. So housing is one. A barrier to your housing was financial literacy. So there has to be some financial education. And then job or education are also barriers. So housing, financial development, and job and education are the things that they have to work on while they are staying with us complimentary. And if they have children, that their children have to be, we are actively trying to get them enrolled in pre-K, actively physically in school, not homeschool, and then engaging them in parenting wisely, like a parenting class that is not saying that they're not a great parent, but that there's some tips and tools to help them be parents in the middle of a crisis of not being in their own home, right? So yeah, so very mandatory things for women, and single women and women with children. Single women in our space, there's a complete different floor and wing. They live dormitory style living, and so single women live in a different space than moms with children. So, there's some differences on, moms with kids have to be in sight and sound of their children if they're on site. Again, if your kids are school age, they have to be in school. We don't do homeschooling, which I'm not opposed to that, but if you're in crisis and trying to move towards stability, you really don't have the capacity to really focus on homeschooling your child, right? We need your child to be in a traditional school so that you can be out doing the things that you need to do to get them and you stable. So very specific differences. One is just that moms with kids have to do some parenting classes, some parenting wisely, do some one-on-one things with their kids. We ensure that there are activities for moms and kids for engagement. Single women, they do all the same things minus kids. But again, the baseline is we're working on stable housing, financial literacy, how to budget the money you have, and how to budget the money that you don't have, how to write checks, how to manage an account, right? I don't have any. I just get food subsidies. Okay, we're going to manage how to manage your SNAP benefits, right? But long term, you'll need to know how to manage money. And then again, it's that job. I don't want to get a job. I don't want a job. I have disability. Okay, well, let's look at some educational avenues for you. Learn how to eat. I don't want to go back to college. Well, let's computer classes. You know what I mean? Like how to, computers, how to work a computer, how to write resumes, there are lots of things that you can continue to educate yourself on. So we find the thing that works best for them. And so while we have some overarching requirements for all, most case plans are case by case and case sensitive based on that woman and her needs and her case management. But our progress, so we typically are looking at, and we tell funders and supporters and folks who are the feds who give us dollars, is that we will have like a 89 to 90% success rate without recidivism in a year. And so that's where our staff are charged with making sure we hit that 90% success rate. And so they have to do the things with their clients to ensure that both they and the organization are successful in that space.
Can you tell us in depth about the strengths you've seen and experienced from the women who stay at the YWCA of Central Indiana?
Absolutely, very resilient. You can imagine what it would look like to be unhoused and have to come to an agency and ask for housing. Like that takes courage, right? That takes some grit. That takes some determination. So while society may say that unhoused individuals are lazy and don't have, like they're just looking for a handout, that's not true in about 95% of the case. That's not true. The other 5% is probably some generational poverty and they just didn't know any different. And then there's also mental health and addictions that would cause that. But most women are just, life is just happening in real time and they haven't been able to, they don't have the communal supports or the family supports at this point to figure it out on their own. So they come humbly to us. And so when they come, we want to be as graceful as possible, right? Again, there are some guidelines in place for order and structure and safety, but we also have to be flexible and fluid because we're dealing with folks who are in the most crucial times of their lives, right? And so, but their grit and their determination, those speak volumes, and we see that. Yeah. And then they find their own community. Once they're here, they do begin to find community with, case manager, communal, like those professional types of supports. But then they begin to find individuals and other women that they connect to in our organization where they become friends and have friendships, right? What I would tell you is that every woman that comes into a homeless shelter is not without money. They have cars. Some of them have degrees, master's degrees, have had amazing careers. Some of them had a job loss they couldn't recover from, or they had a mental breakdown and they just couldn't get it, back on get it together, or she was married and her husband handled all of the bills and all the things, and he died and didn't know there was a second mortgage on the home and now don't have enough money to do all the things out there. So I need to come here for a minute so that I can stack my money so that I can get back on my feet. And so the misconception of what homelessness looks like is something that we try to demystify. Homelessness is not a person, it's just a moment in time. So that's what we lean to. It's just a moment in time. We all could be there. There's just takes one catastrophic event and we all could find ourselves displaced.
Are these experiences different from what you might see in children or teenagers?
Yeah, so believe it or not, like our we see a lot increase. The homelessness in youth is increasing. A lot of it is around, some is kids age out of foster home, to the age out, and their parents are like, we can no longer get benefits for you. You are, a liability at this point for some. That's the real reality. But there's also like sexuality, right? Like, so some kids are turned out of their homes because of sexuality too. And so we see an increase youth, definitely. So I would say youth between like 16 and 24, high. But even here with kids who are in elementary, middle school, high school, we want them to be the best and as successful as they can be. So we want to help reduce generational poverty in those those cycles. And so schooling is important. Education is one of the best ways out of poverty. And so our kids are really resilient here. We remove all barriers to education for them. The buses, we have a McKinney-Vento. There's a McKinney-Vento Act that if you lived, you could be from Indianapolis and live with us. If that kid and that parent wanted to stay for continuity, that bus would come every day to take that kid to the school they go to in Indianapolis for continuity, right? And so we do that. That still happens. Like wherever that kid goes to school, they're still able to do that. We're able to have conversations with, counselors in the McKinney-Vento teams in schools who have an understanding of what homelessness looks like. But these kids are so determined and they've seen hard lives that they excel in the classroom. So 95, almost 100% of the kids that are in school that live with us, they thrive in the classroom because we require it and we are there to help them. So tutors, homework assistants, after school programs, really leaning into, if parents don't know how, then we have volunteers and folks who come in here and help their kids to be the best they can in the classroom and outside. Fun stuff too. Imagine living in a shelter as a kid. They got to have fun things to do. There has to be some escape, right? We have a big gymnasium. They can run around there. We got kids that, and our staff don't always agree with me, but it's like, let them go in there and do whatever. Let them burn it off. I don't care if they run up and down the hallways. It's not, you got to give them some, freedoms and some room to be kids, right? And if anybody did if there was kids that did everything right all the time, that would make me nervous, right? So we have a little resistance too. And so like kids who live with us, we literally have kids who now that are in high school that live with us, right? And so our staff is like getting them up in the morning, like they're emancipated, or like we just they've just turned 18 and they are like seniors and juniors in high school, like, get up, it's time for school. Nope, like we're doing that. We also have some students who have lived with us since they were twin sisters who've been with us since they were right the day after they turned 18, they were here. And one of them is going to school at Ivy Tech and has a job, and the other one is got a scholarship to a school in Indiana. But when they're on breaks, their house is still here. They still have their rooms here like they would at home. And so we go deeper than just providing a service. We want to change lives. And so we lean into the young kids. They miss curfew, and it's like, you miss curfew. Like they miss curfew when they're a kid. Didn't we miss curfew too? Like we got to remember, like these are humans and we can't just check boxes. They don't fit into these nice squares that we would want. Like these are people with real lives. And so as a leader, my job is to kind of be visionary and help them to understand that, yes, we have to have these things happen, but yes, there's a human side to all of us. So, but that's my social work background that brings that aspect to us. And so they're like, she's drunk. She came in after curfew and she was sloppy drunk. Well, what do you do on the weekends? Do you drink? If you drink, you're drunk, where do you go? Home and lay it down. Well, let her go lay it down. And then you all can talk about IOP, addictions recovery, or AA. If it's something that's habitual, you can talk about that with them. But I mean, this is where they live. Like if they had it all together, they wouldn't be here. Like if people had it together, a lot of the services and resources in our communities that are there would not be there if people didn't need them, right? So we got to think like that. I'm like, we're going to go home to nice, cushy beds. We're going to get in our cars and we're going to drive away. They are not. So they don't have to say thank you today because they live in a shelter and life is sucking right now. So they don't have to say thank you. They don't have to be, you know what I mean? We provide a service, and our service is to help them get on their feet. And so I don't need a thank you for that. You know what I mean? That's not what we're in the business for. We don't sell anything, we provide. So there is a difference, and so we're all human. And so we got to live with that humanness. I was just this morning did a radio talk show, and it was about transformational leadership and servant leadership too, but how to pivot and navigate the world that we live in now. And even in our organization, we have to pivot. Our team will be like, oh my gosh, we're changing the guideline. Yep, that guideline fit for that population of people last month, last year, last decade, but it doesn't work for them in this space right now. And so we need to pivot. So being able to be flexible and adaptable is really important when you work with vulnerable populations. You have to be flexible. Yeah.
There was a newsletter posted by the YWCA of Central Indiana website March 31st that stated that there's a tie between sexual assault and homelessness, knowing that numerous studies result in the underscore of pervasive nature of violence in the histories of homeless women. Would you be able to explain how this connection between sexual assault and homelessness continues to spike and increase as time goes on?
Yeah, definitely there is an intersectionality. There is that intersection of homelessness and domestic violence. So in our community, you know, a better way is here to provide. We have a local domestic violence shelter who's actually across the street from us, but they provide that DV services directly for things that are fresh and just have happened. But they also provide some support groups and the like. They have that homeless shelter program for women who need their DV homeless shelter. But anyone, and I worked there too. So that's for me, it's like I did years in the domestic violence shelter space as well. And so, and then the intersectionality of homelessness and DV is definitely a real thing. So most women that go to a DV shelter, they have exhausted all their resources too. Their family is over it, they're tired of it. Like you see, keep going back to Joe or Jackie or whatever, like we're done. And they don't have the financial means to go and get a hotel or a new place, right? And so they find themselves in shelter. So me, if I were a domestic violence victim, because of I can get a hotel. I could go stay with a girlfriend or a relative or get a new apartment, right? Because I have that capability. Women in DV who don't have that money, they go into shelters, DV. And sometimes they don't follow guidelines at DV shelters, and then they end up at our shelter who is not necessarily DV, but we house anyone. But most of the women that we serve in our shelter have had some traumatic issues in life, whether it was at the child sexual abuse or domestic violence. And I would say about 88% of the women that we serve, one of the questions in our intake process in our assessments is, are you a survivor of domestic violence? And they would say yes or no. And if they say yes, we kind of ask about that time frame. If it's immediate, if it's in the last 30, 60 days, then we want to stop and we want to refer them to a Better Way services. But if it's beyond that, then we just provide support groups and recommend that they do some very specific things in their care plan. But about 88% of them have experienced domestic violence at some iteration in their life. And then again, like having relationships where there's that power and control, where that partner may control the money, has the access. The victim survivor does not have the access. And so homelessness and DV, they are hand in hand. It's like it's running neck and neck. And y'all smart enough to go do the research, but it's definitely a real thing. Definitely a real thing.
In one of your interviews with Cardinal Media Ball State in
Oh
February.
Lord, y'all all in my business.
This past February, you referenced fostering a society where women and children have the chance to live with dignity and security. Are you able to tell us more about what dignity and security look like from your perspective?
Dignity is when a woman walks through our doors, most times for our services, most times they're at the lowest point of their life, right? And so our job is to treat her with respect, give her grace and dignity, like acknowledge her concerns and her feelings, right? Welcome her in with open arms in the literal and in the sense, right? But they deserve a place. If you don't have a place to live and someone's offering you somewhere, you'll take whatever it is. You'll take it, whether it's safe, stable, cold. Like I need a place to live, so I'm willing to jump through I'll take whatever I can get, right, for me and my kids. That's not good enough. They deserve to be in places that are dignified, that speak to speak that is ethically and aesthetically pleasing to them, and so they don't have to just live in like institutional type things. Like our building is old, and you all know we their home is their home. This is their home. And so when they come to us, like I want them to have the best, it's very simple as all the way down to dignity is they have to come and ask for how, supplies. If it's hygiene supplies, they don't have funding or money, they ask for supplies and we meet those needs. But there's a way that we can do that is dignified, right? So we have this big, I'll just give you an example. We have a big walk-in hygiene closet with all the deodorants, toothpaste, body wash, shampoo, pads, tampons, all the things that you and I need to do our hygienic things. Instead of one of my staff members walking in there and pick, oh, I need some deodorant. Instead of my staff going in there to get the deodorant and choosing what the staff wants to hand her, let her go and pick her own. Like that's where I say there's dignity, they have to ask for, lots of women in shelters, period supplies are like, they don't want to go ask for certain things because it's embarrassing and it's hard. And so our team is trained and we stay training on how to provide services in a dignified way that brings equity to all folks. And so, yeah, women deserve to have the best and they come to us at their worst. And so we're not going to treat them less than. There is a power dynamic and we try to level that playing field. We try to give lots of grace. This is their home. We try to see them for who they are. We try to give them first, second, third, fourth, fifth chances. And for me, I'm really strict on and really, this is where they live. And just because they have a place to live, that's not good enough. Make it better. How do we make it better? How do we make it warm? Get some pretty blankets. Get the best of the best. Paint the color, the walls better, right? Like, your emotions and your energy and the way your mood is determined by what is around you, right? And so, yeah. So I want little kids to come in here. They got to come in this place and they don't know what the heck's happening, but they have access to books and computers and toys, and they have nice little neat sets on their bed when they come in with, you know what I mean? It's not, you go sit on a cot or sleep on a cot and here's a ragged stained pillow or blanket. No, we're going to give them, my job is to make sure that our agency can provide some things to women and make them feel special. Like I got to be at a shelter, but I'll tell you about this shelter. They treat me like that I matter, right? They see me, they stop what they're doing and they help us out. And so that's what we want. And I am a servant leader by nature. They want me to get out of the way. But if I am in the space where I see clients, I don't know all of their names. I don't. But if I hear them talking, if I can help them in any way, like I might be at the desk and someone might need something immediately and there's no one around, like I'm not too big of a, hey, can I help you? Right. And they'll say what they need, or I'll ask them, what's your name? What's your room number? Where are you at? Or, like I'll do that, but I'll also am not opposed to, you need hygiene here. Let me take you over to that closet so you can get what you need. So I like to model the behavior, but I'm a woman and I know what I would need and what I would want to feel when I'm in a place. And so we don't get it right every time, but we work at it. If we don't get it right, we talk about how we can do it better. I allow my staff to do the work. But if there are things that need to be changed, and it's okay to make a mistake, we'll do it differently next time. But I just remind them, I'm like, we all have some stability and we all are one mistake away. Like we have a place. So like, this is their place. So how do we make their experiences here the best? Because you have a paycheck because she's here, right? So she's kind of sort of your boss. So like, let's make our bosses' lives a little bit easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Lastly, what do you believe is next for the YWCA of Central Indiana?
What's next is a new building. This one has provided services since 1911, and it's done a great job since 1911. But the YW itself is like a woman in transition. The building is just like the women we serve. One step forward, two steps back. My job and my goal is to get them into a new building by 2028, one that speaks equity, really, like modernized. We have window air conditioners and steam heat and all these things here. Like we want central air. We want to touch a dial and it warms up, right? We want beautiful walls. We want fobs and key codes and we want a cool new computer lab and state-of-the-art kitchens to cook in. They deserve that. Yeah. And so that's where we're working on our board and I are working to get to that in our campaign team. So we're working there. So we'll hit all the heavy hitters. And we are a group of women. Our board is all women led. And then we have a capital campaign cabinet of 18 women from our community who are the top women in community who are going to help us rally around